Hey everyone, my name is Megan, and today we're here with our founder, Dr. John Mullins. We always tell you all a little bit about what we do, but we don't tell you enough about who we are. So today we're going to be asking Dr. Mullins a lot of genuine questions and having an open conversation. We're here with Dr. John Mullins. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, thank you. I'm glad to be a participant on my own show here, and I look forward to answering all your questions. I think these types of taped interviews are really helpful. I think we've done a very good job as an organization explaining what we do, and I think the general public also kind of wants to know who we are and why we do what we do, and I think this hopefully will shed some light on that.
Who were you before you were a doctor?
Good question, Megan. You sometimes, as an adult, try to almost black this part of your life out that you don't necessarily are super proud of. You don't, but it is something that has defined who I am, and it just like it defines who everybody is based on the way they're brought up and things. I don't ever remember a time that I did not want to be a doctor, but I do recall as a youngster thinking that was something that was never going to happen. I grew up in a family structure that didn't have a lot of money. My parents got married in their teens, and we moved around a great deal, and we certainly didn't have a lot of material items, let alone cash that was going to be required in order for me to go to college or go to medical school. So it forced me, though, to grow up very quickly, and I recall being employed almost full-time since I was a sixth grader. And so I guess before I was a doctor, I was a wannabe doctor. And I was trying to search for an answer to become a doctor with the limited resources that I had available.
Yeah, I mean, you've told me stories that you've worked at McDonald's and Wendy's and did everything to get to where you are now.
The people that come to see me all have a story, and I get to hear their stories. They don't always get to hear my story, but my story is one that that if someone truly knew where I came from and what I had been able to accomplish, at least they would consider it a success story. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I wasn't born with the perfect family dynamic. I wasn't born with the perfect support group, but it also created in me a will to not only survive, but to get out of that type of dynamic so that I could set a new dynamic for my kids. And so it instilled in me a work ethic and an ability to fight that still burns strong today. And mostly what I do with work, it's more of like a burning desire to excel that has come about when you're trying to, even when you're having minimum wage at McDonald's, it's the same thing. And so I would never change it for anything, but at the same time, I would never wish it on anybody either.
So it sounds like a lot of your motivation strives from wanting to excel and
wanting to overcome my own personal dynamics, and many of the people that come to me have the same goals. They're looking for a solution to their current situation, and there is a solution for it. And I discovered that early on, that is there is a solution to any plight you find yourself in life. It's just coming up with what that solution looks like, and then implementing an execution strategy. And I kind of did that as I was a kid. I knew I wasn't going to go to college unless I had my own money. I knew I wasn't going to be able to make it to medical school unless I was able to pay for it myself. And so for me to rely on something that was never going to happen, like my parents being able to do so, that would have been a pipe dream. So it required me to work and to save and to do a lot of the things that made me very disciplined, and very similar to the way I'm disciplined with my life currently. So yeah, it kind of defines who you are, the way you're brought up, and the advantages or disadvantages you have, but I wouldn't change it for anything.
And throughout your college career, I don't think a lot of people knew this about you, but you were a track star. Is that right?
I think call me a star would be some of an overstatement, but I did run track at UK. I was on scholarship at UK. I was a fairly good athlete. Yeah, many people don't think that I'm much of an athlete now. Maybe I'm not, but at one point or another in my life, I was. So yeah, that is a fun fact that most people do not know about me.
And then after medical school, when you became an official doctor, what did the journey look like for you as a doctor before you opened Marshall?
The way that I am now with this Marshall is very similar to the way I was with my former Marshall when I was 26 years old, I was hired over the telephone to work as a moonlighting doctor in a local emergency room, and I found that whole concept bizarre. For one, I wasn't qualified. Two, they probably knew I wasn't qualified. Three, this is the way it was done all over the country, where people were hired over the telephone, unbeknownst to the general public, to work in an emergency room where people's lives are at stake. From that experience, I created, in conjunction with my former business partner, a model to staff and to manage emergency medicine departments around this area of the country. And I guess the way Marshall that we have now was born out of the same necessity, is see something that doesn't make any sense and then come up with a solution for it. And then by default, that makes you an entrepreneur in medicine. So I guess since that time where can you possibly imagine a doctor being hired over the telephone without an interview? I mean, we interview people that answer the phone several times before we decide if we're going to move forward with them. There was no question answer. It was, if you're a doctor, then therefore you must be qualified, and therefore can you work tomorrow? I just found that whole concept bizarre. So
that's when you opened.
I opened Marshall Emergency Services at that time with the commitment that we would never hire anybody over the telephone. That one change changed everything, because that forced us to actually look at the qualifications of the people that we were potentially thinking about hiring, something that had not been done previously. Simply, if you had a degree that said MD or DO, they assumed you were qualified, and that was not the case.
You also were an ER doctor for over 20 years, is that right?
20 years. Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit more about that. What did those 20 years look like for you?
Well, they were very difficult 20 years. I frequently give a talk that called Success at Great Cost. During those 20 years, I was still of the mindset of me as a child, working towards some arbitrary finish line that I would be something once I achieved something that was somewhat arbitrary. And for me, that achievement was having enough money to where I never had to worry about it ever again. And so I spent 20 years working 100 hours a week to try to create a model that eventually could be sold for me to achieve a finish line that I was after. And I must say, we were successful. We actually achieved it. We created an ER model that we staffed lots of hospitals. We had very good results, and people lined up to want to purchase our model. But I do recall, though, and this is one of those things that you remember for the rest of your life. There's certain moments in life that don't mean anything at the moment, but you never can forget them after the fact, is when we closed on that sale of our group to a publicly traded company. I was expecting like the clouds to part and confetti to fall down and like rays of light from heaven coming down, and then champagne corks to pop. And it was the exact opposite. The money transferred into my account. I was sitting there in a restaurant with a couple other people. We all kind of looked at one another. We were all exhausted, and I just went home and went to bed.
It just didn't feel as deserving.
It didn't accomplish what I was after, which is why my subsequent endeavor with this new Marshall endeavor was so important to me, because I knew that there had to be a lot of people out there just like me that were chasing arbitrary finish lines as a metric of their value or their merit. And as a consequence of those singular goals, it would come at great cost to the rest of their life. Their interpersonal relationships with like their kids, their friends, their family, their sleep, their happiness, their mental resilience, all the things now that we focus on in lifestyle medicine, I did not focus on with my previous endeavor. And it came at great cost to myself. When that money transferred, I was probably at my lowest point I'd ever been at, despite the fact that I had achieved whatever the metric I had chosen for myself as the ultimate metric of my success, so to speak. And from that, I really did a lot of thinking as to what can I do with the next aspect of my life to change that.
So that's when the idea of martial lifestyle medicine started.
That is where Marshall came to be ultimately. There were a lot of other variables that played into that, but ultimately it came down as a result of that feeling I had. And then I took a year and a half off and I did my version, what was called the Happiness Project, where I tried to figure out if there was a magic recipe for happiness for myself. And I read a lot of books and I tried a lot of things. And then ultimately I came up with my 12-pillar lifestyle infographic that I still use to this day that keeps me in check, keeps me in balance, and forces me to live my life very purposefully as opposed to just winging it, which I find that most people do, including myself. And so lifestyle medicine was born out of the haze of how do you teach people to make purposeful decisions that will impart their life to the best pathway forward. And that's where it came from. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because it's something that was of paramount importance for me. I needed to do it. And so that's why I love what I do now is I'm trying to teach other people how to live optimally by making better decisions and being very purposeful with those decision making.
So way back in the day, when you thought of martial lifestyle medicine, what you envisioned is today exactly how you envisioned it to be?
It's about 50% of what's in my head. So some people ask me, why am I never satisfied? Because we've obviously done fairly well as an organization. The reason I'm not fully satisfied is because in my head, it looks so much better. And I know that there's still a lot of work to be done. I think the general public deserves something that's clearly different than what they can get currently with traditional healthcare. And it can't just be a little bit different. It has to be remarkably different. And so the next 50% is adding the icing on the cake to what we do to be uniquely, absolutely different in a better way than what they can get with traditional care.
In 5 years, where do you see martial lifestyle medicine?
Well, we're definitely going to open new clinics. I was always planning on doing that from the day I opened because I knew this wasn't going to just be a project that was going to be unique to Hamburg, Lexington. I wanted to leave a legacy in healthcare, and I knew in order to do that, I was going to have to touch as many people as I possibly could. So I know some people get hesitant when they know we're opening new offices, how's that's going to affect their care. I wouldn't look at it that way as a patient, because as we grow, I will be better suited to be able to fill in that last 50% that hasn't come to fruition yet, that can only come about as a result of growth. But I do plan on extending our model into other markets, because I believe that what we do translates all over the country, and people are struggling, and traditional healthcare is not filling the voids currently. And there has to be a more definitive solution for it.
I want to talk more about growth, because I've been here the last 4 years. I feel like we've grown so much, and it's come from just you and another provider to now we have almost a team of providers that are you excited about?
Oh, absolutely. On my to-do list was always to have a form of provider fellowship, so to speak, because I know how difficult it was for me personally to build this model, because there wasn't a template for it. And I do know that there's other doctors that are interested in what I do. People call me frequently. And I would love to leave a legacy of being able to train the next generation on how to do what we do correctly. And a lot of people have interest in concierge medicine as providers because it's less busy for them. But our model of concierge medicine is so profoundly different that it's not something a doctor could just learn on their own or go to a conference. So yes, I think as we get bigger, we'll have the capacity to start training other providers, even the ones that do not ultimately work for us.
So what would you say your biggest goals are and aspirations at this time?
You know, I'm my worst critic, so there's no one that can ever define that for me. I'm never truly satisfied. I would like to get to a point where I feel like I can take a breath and feel comfortable in my own head that I've got it as close as I could to being a perfect model. And I think that will come about over the next several years. Each one of these little value adds that we're trying to create are difficult and to implement and to scale. So I will feel very satisfied when I feel like we have a model that is profoundly different, that is results driven, that the objective metrics speak for themselves, that what we do truly does work and we can show that metrically, and that then we have a model that is scalable to other markets, even if I'm not the doctor that's providing those services, that we can train other doctors to provide services in a way that I feel proud of. That will be my metric of achievement, if I can go to bed feeling comfortable that I've achieved what I was after and I have a model that's scalable.
Well, I feel like we've all got to know you on a very personal level today, and it's really nice to know the why behind you.
Well, without a why, people struggle. I think I've noticed in my lifetime, in my limited time I've been alive, the people that do the best have something they're working, and they know exactly why they're doing what they're doing, and therefore it's not a money grab. There's a lot of get rich quick schemes that are out there with like cryptocurrency and these different things. There is no substitute to building a company the right way. It doesn't come quickly.
It's always been clear to me since day one of working here that you're not in it for the money.
The money is just is something that's a bonus. If we ultimately achieve our goals with no money involved, I'll still be able to sleep at night. Money always flows, but you can't lead with making money as a business model. You have to lead with building something that people want, they need, and can change their lives. And once you do that, money generally flows. But again, it's probably not even the top 5 or 10 variables that I use to gauge our success. I know when we're doing our job. I know the results that we achieve with our patients when we do what we set out to do. They call me, they give me unsolicited testimonials. I can see it in their eyes, and that gives me great pleasure knowing that we've affected people in a positive way. So money will just happen or it won't, but that's not something that drives me.
I think that's what makes you a good doctor.
I think that all people are better when money is not the motivating factor for why they do what they do. And I think that's true for every person. And if that comes through when I'm talking to people, all the better, because I do believe in what I do and I do care about what I do and I take what I do very seriously. And money is not the driving motivator for me whatsoever.
Yeah. I think anyone that knows you knows your true intentions.
Well, I hope so. And I hope this video helps to clarify that, because my intentions are noble. I mean, I really do want to leave a legacy of something good. And, we all have a finite amount of time on this earth. And I just want to leave something that has some degree of legacy associated with it that maybe future generations can benefit from. And as a society, what we do right now just does not work in healthcare. We have to do something different. And it's going to take people like me or other people that are playing on the fringes, trying to come up with new models that the results are the only thing that matters. Results. Making people happy, making people healthy, making people live optimally. Those things matter, not just how many meds they can take, how many referrals we can give them. We've got to get out of the reactive mindset of healthcare and move towards a more proactive one. And I think that we have the makings of something like that now.
One of the biggest reasons you opened martial lifestyle medicine was because you yourself were not feeling great and you wanted to build something for others that could benefit others.
I don't think there's a person on the face of the earth that doesn't notice changes to the way they feel after 40. Anybody who says they don't is lying. And healthcare as a general rule is not set up for those vague symptoms that occur when a person is starting to get a little older, but does not have anything in their blood work which would obviously reveal what's causing those feelings or those signs. And yeah, I was feeling the same way. I was feeling something was off, but I couldn't put a finger on it. And I didn't have enough wrong with me that healthcare in its current form could offer a solution for it. And therefore, I had to create a model that would benefit people that are noticing the effects of aging before they're sick, and come up with a solution for them to at least make them feel better during that period, and then to prevent the illness that ultimately will manifest as they get older. And I think that is something the general public is interested in. Optimization, prevention, and early detection is something I think that people want. Now we just have to educate the public on what it means and why that's a value add to them to continue to entertain operating in a concierge practice like my own, or someone else's, and how that would add benefit to their lives.
So as we wrap up, is there anything else that maybe you wish that people knew about you?
I think my biggest accomplishment that I feel I've accomplished in my lifetime is being a father to my daughters, Zoe and Emma, I feel like that I see in as they've grown older, that the commitment that their mom and I gave to them has yielded very positive results, and that they've turned out to be very, very fruitful, very educated, very mature, very caring, giving adults. And I'm most proud of that.
Mm-hmm. They are. They both are.
Yeah. Thanks. Those are good questions, Megan.
Well, thank you for taking your time to tell us a little bit more about you.
Well, we'll do the same with you sometime. I do think that people are interested in who we are as individuals, just like we're interested in who they are as individuals. And I do want to be known for the human nature of what we do. And so thank you for having me on my show and giving me an opportunity to talk about who I am and why I do what I do. And I appreciate it.
Thank you for taking the time to learn more about Dr. John Mullins and Martial Lifestyle Medicine, how it began, and where we want to go next. If you would like to meet any of our providers, including Dr. John Mullins, I encourage you to schedule a meet and greet, a non-obligation setting just to learn more about who we are and what we do.